Welcome back to my tiny tarot practice. I'm Amelia Fruby, and this podcast documents my tiny tarot practice as I explore the tarot card by card, beginning with each suit of the minor arcana. Today's card is the Seven of Cups. In the Rider-Waite-Smith version of the tarot, the Seven of Cups has a figure in the foreground. They're facing away from us. They're kind of blacked out, like shadowed out in the card. And in front of them, farther away in the card, are 7 cups floating in the clouds. Each cup is full of a different thing. There's a floating head. There's a kind of cloth covering what looks to be like a divine image, I would guess, perhaps Jesus Christ. There's a snake. There's a castle on a cliff. There's a cup full of jewels and baubles. There's a cup full of a wreath. There's a cup with what looks to be a dragon inside. Each cup presents a different offering, and there are 7 of them. The 7 of Cups floating on this cloud in front of this figure. And I agree with Jessica Doerr's interpretation here that the 7 of Cups implies a choice. The figure has like one hand out, like outstretched to like select a cup. And obviously they cannot hold all 7 cups at once. So they're going to have to choose. And this card then is often interpreted as the challenge of choice, as what do we do when there are so many options in front of us? It's also, I think, because these cups are in the cloud, seen as a card of daydream or fantasy. And Jessa Crispin in the Creative Tarot says that with the 7 of Cups, we see, quoting, the difference between fantasy and the imagination. For her, fantasy is detached from reality. But the imagination is a creative tool that we can use to change our reality. Jessica Doerr interprets the card similarly, talking about how we can imagine all sorts of things, but if we intentionally imagine toward the reality we want, we can start to change our material circumstance. And so when I look at the 7 of Cups, I'm always reminded of both the expansive and contractive nature of choice, the way that having many choices is a gift and perhaps a curse. How do we know what to choose? And I think with the 7 of Cups, with some interpretations, I feel this pressure to like pick the right one, but I prefer to liberate myself and remind myself that any choice can be a right choice if it's made with intention and care. Looking at this card, I'm not sure it matters if I choose the snake or the cliff or the wreath or any of these things. I think it's more about channeling intention through our choices. Imagining possibilities, not simply as fantasies that could never happen for us or could only happen for other people, but as real possibilities for our own lives. I recently drew this card in a reading for myself, and I interpreted it as a reminder that sometimes when I feel stuck, the medicine for that is to imagine many different possible outcomes. In a different context, I might choose this card and think, oh yeah, I feel really confused because I have so many possible outcomes. Again, it's that expansive and contractive quality. Sometimes the expansiveness is what feels more comfortable and supportive. Sometimes the contraction is what feels more comfortable and supportive. The 7 of Cups meets us in that undulating place of choice and options and possibilities and imagination, even in fantasy. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of my tiny tarot practice. If you'd like to find any of the books that I mentioned here, you can head to the show notes. I've got a link to my bookshop where I curate my favorite books on tarot, as well as decks and all sorts of tarot and magical things. You can definitely find Jessica Doerr's Tarot for Change and Jessa Crispin's The Creative Tarot there. If you make a purchase through that link, I'll receive a small affiliate payment that helps me keep making this podcast. I appreciate that in today's 7 of Cups podcast world, where you have so many episodes to choose from and listen to, that you chose this show and this episode. Thank you for joining me in this Seven of Cups moment. Much love and more soon.